Comments here from everybody. David Little, new viewer. I missed the old WCW thing. Welcome to Breaking the Ice, David Little.
Yeah,
Thank
Dave,
you for
thanks,
joining
buddy.
us. Thank you so much. Hello, Joel Bateman. Gus Anselmo, what's up to you, Gus? Thank you for joining us.
Hey, buddy.
JC, you are the best. Lewis, thank you so much. Jonathan O'Dwyer, old school wrestling manager. Don't know about that, but what I will say, guys, is that we are going to manage more segments because it's hot and heavy. This episode, like every other, is chock full of good stuff. There's another anniversary I want to talk about with Ray. This actually happened 25 years ago, and it's an anniversary that you guys may not be privy to because only Ray and a select few will know about this. Now all of you will as well. So we're going to actually let you know. There is a question from Don Morocco joining us right now, and I know it's early in Hawaii. Thank you so much, Don, for joining us. Did Dusty mentor you on mentor people on promos? From Don.
Don, first of all, thanks so much for taking the time to jump on board. I'm just telling you, Don, every time you come on board, I get so nervous because I'm such a big fan of yours. But I hope I don't stumble over my words. But I will say this, Don. He coached all of us. I'm not so sure how great we all turned out, but because Dusty was Dusty on the promos. But that was a really cool thing too, is to be able to get coached one-on-one by one of the best promo guys in the business, and just learn some of his techniques and just put his advice to use was incredibly special to me to know that you were being coached by this. I mean, if you were to equate it to like football, one of the NFL greats, it would be like that, being taught to throw a pass by one of the great quarterbacks, or being taught how to hit a baseball by Babe Ruth. I mean, it was that type of feel, and it was really, truly special to us. It really was.
Great question there from Don. Thank you so much, Don. Of course, making waves every Thursday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, noon Hawaiian time, live, as live can be. What's up, Michael Anthony? I miss Bobby Heenan so much from Joel Bateman. You guys can keep the comments coming. Yeah, Ray should attest to that. Guys, 25 years ago, something took place. I'm going to pull up a photo. I know that two people in this photo were privy to it. I want to ask Ray if the third one did as well. But before I even do that, I'll digress because Ray's got a story to tell. Ray, what happened about 25 years back around this particular time?
Yeah, I mean, this is this week, and I was going to mention this last week, but it actually it was December 23rd, which would have been Wednesday of last week, I believe. And of course, this is a picture of me and two of my best friends in the whole world, Diamond Dallas Page and Luther Biggs, and the original Big Sexy Luther Biggs. And so December 23rd, 1995. I moved to Atlanta in 1990. I'd gotten to know Dallas. Dallas, had gotten to see my work ethic and was trying, was certainly willing to try to help. But, it's like anything else. Timing is everything, and Dallas always says, give me talent, give me luck, give me timing. I'll take timing every time, and so we were out Christmas shopping in Lenox Mall, the big high-end mall in downtown Atlanta. We'd shopped for a while. We'd stopped at the California Pizza Kitchen in the food court to eat.
Right.
And I was telling him, because I was kind of, nothing was seeming to get the attention of anybody on the higher up level. And so I said to Dallas, hey, Dallas, I'm thinking about adding some martial arts to my in-ring stuff. And Dallas goes, well, bro, that'd be great if you knew some of that stuff. And I was like, Dallas, what are you talking about? I've been doing this since I was like 15 years old. He goes, well, I never knew that. And somehow
you didn't know that you were like a martial arts guy.
I don't think to the degree that I think he had kind of heard a little bit, but not to the degree that I really was, as far as my dedication to it. And he goes, Bischoff's into all that stuff. And I was like, well, I didn't know that. So what happened? So I ended up spending the rest of our lunch telling him specifics about my martial arts career, being a full contact karate champion and all that stuff. And so he was like, let me go back and talk to Eric. So unbeknownst to Dallas, Turner, who had the show, Mortal Kombat, the TV show, they had already approached WCW and particularly Eric about, hey, can we bring this concept into the ring?
Sure.
So that's when Eric said, okay, I want to have a meeting with him. And around the first week of January, 1996, I had a dinner meeting with Eric. It went about 3 hours. It was not in an office anywhere. It was in the back of a little restaurant by their neighborhood. At the end of that 3-hour meeting is when Eric said, I want to sign you to a deal with WCW. I've got this great idea, and I think you'd be perfect for it. That was the origination. That started the wheels in motion to what would become Glacier, and which would change my life forever. And it's one of the many things that I thank Dallas for, mostly for his friendship, but for the fact that he was willing to go to bat for me. And as I always say, it's who's willing to say they know you. And he was willing to say he knew me and put his name on the line, reputation on the line for me.
Especially in industry, just like everything else. I don't want pro wrestling to be mixed up with other industries. It could be a Fortune 500 company.
Yeah.
Right. But there's always competition. And just to know that you have a friend that's willing to go to bat for you, that's incredible. But also to know what you made out of a character. I know you have
Yeah.
a different ideology that a lot of people say, well, you have to become the character. A lot of times you say it's the opposite. The character becomes you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can tell you this, Abby, it's now coming up on, basically the 25th anniversary of Glacier, me being Glacier, 25 years, and I just, I'm so honored and so thrilled and so humbled to be, to have been, to be Glacier and be received and still accepted by the wrestling community. And granted, I've gone through some peaks and valleys as Glacier with the fans. But I think overall, consistently, I hope the one thing the fans always knew is that I totally dedicated everything I have to being Glacier, and I wanted to represent the professional wrestling industry well, and to be an approachable, wrestling star, if you want to call it that. And to be somebody who gives back to the industry, who represents well to the fact that that's approachable by fans, because I'm still a fan first, and I love this business. I love being a fan, and I love being Glacier, and I'm glad that it's kind of morphed a little bit into this phase of my career as Glacier, where it's a little bit more of a nostalgia thing, which I'm totally cool with, and
Sure.
Thank the good Lord, I still look somewhat like I did when I was on TV 20 plus years ago.
I keep saying this, guys and gals. No matter where Ray moves to, he takes the Fountain of Youth with him. He packs it up in that U-Haul, and he's got it there. Yeah, and that's the thing, too, because people ask this question all the time. Hey, Ray, do you wrestle? Ray, when the time calls for it, you put that gear back on, and you're ready to go.
Yeah, and it's funny. Luther always gives me a hard time because there was a time in my life where I said, I'm not going to be wrestling past 40. Well, here I am. I'm rolling on to 57 in a few months. But and I just wrestled last weekend for my great friend Manny Lemons out in.
Guys, I didn't believe it either. I had to check Ray's ID when I first met him. I didn't really know he was.
But I just wrestled last weekend in Salt Lake City, Utah, with my friend Manny Lemons and his Devotion Championship Wrestling out there, which is a great promotion. And Manny and his great wife Diana actually have committed so much. They moved. Their family still helps run their promotion out there, but they have moved to where they're spending a lot of their time in Atlanta training with us here at the Nightmare Factory. Which just, you talk about dedication. That shows me so much of how they're dedicated to pursuing their dream. And I want to do everything I can to help them.
Guys and gals, there is something that happened this past weekend. On Saturday, I want to bring this up really quickly. On Saturday, there were 4 people within the sports community that were actually their lives were taken. Brody Lee, who also wrestled as Luke Harper in the WWE, died at the age of 41.
Yeah.
And we also lost, and I'm going to talk about a couple of other guys. Ray will bring them up. One who was a legend in the world of baseball, and another in the world of professional wrestling. I have photos to accompany this individual, but one person I want to speak about is Casey Jones. Casey Jones, guys and gals, of course, a lot of people will assume that that's the guy who was in the Ninja Turtles, who was played by. No, Casey Jones was a legendary basketball player and coach.
Yeah.
Man, I got to tell you, the Celtics were a hated team before the Pistons were hated. They kind of were the first team that was universally hated by the masses in the 80s. Of course, Casey Jones, right after Bill Fitch coached the Celtics to their first championship with Larry and McHale and Parrish, Casey Jones stepped in, and the players loved him. He was also a legendary player during the Bill Russell, Sam Jones, John Havlicek, Jim Loskatoff, Frank Ramsey led Celtics
of the
50s and Celtics. They won 8 championships in a row. Bill Russell's got 11 out of 13 seasons he played in. Casey Jones was a big part of that. Guys and gals, he was also humanitarian. Casey Jones did a lot for his community. He also passed away at the same age as the next gentleman that I'll bring up right now that Ray Lloyd knew. Casey Jones did pass, if I'm not mistaken, at the age of either 86 or 88. I'll correct that in a minute. So we do want to send our condolences to the family of Casey Jones.
Yeah, wow.
The good life, though. Yeah, guys, thank you so much for all those shares. Keep them coming. Yeah, we got a lot of them coming already.
Thank you, guys.
Jonathan O'Dwyer, thank you for joining us from, I believe, Ireland, if I'm not mistaken. I do want to bring up somebody right now that we lost that Ray had the privilege of meeting, and he also passed away on Saturday at the age of 86, I believe. This is a photo that will accompany the person I'm speaking of. Ray, can you take us back to your meetings and experiences with Danny Hodge?
Oh, wow. I always tell our trainees, because I'm really big on teaching the history of our business. I think that if you're going to, whatever business you go into, I think you should know the people who carved the path for you. Danny Hodge is one of the greatest to ever lace up a pair of boots on the amateur level and on the professional level. When I worked in WWAB, I got a chance to meet him in the early 90s. These are a couple of pictures of me and my buddy Steve Day, who was Cody Rhodes' high school wrestling coach and also a world-class wrestler who's now in the Amateur Wrestling Hall of Fame. And we hope to have Steve on as a guest here sometime this coming new year. But when I met, the first time I ever went into the dojo to train on my first trip to UWFI in Japan, I walked in and it was Billy Robinson, Danny Hodge, and Luthez. And we all, you've heard my stories about Luthez. Billy Robinson, one of the greatest European wrestlers of all time. Danny Hodge
came out of the infamous Snake Pit in Wigan, England.
Yes, and Danny Hodge, one of the greatest American wrestlers ever, the only amateur wrestler to ever be on the cover of Sports Illustrated. And legendary grip strength. I've got a picture that I meant to send you, Avi. Maybe we'll show it maybe next week. But when he was at 80 years old, he was at the, I think the House of Representatives.
Ray, I got to tell you, on Unmasking the Truth this past Sunday, I pulled up a photo of him smashing an apple, 80 years old, in front of the Senate in Oklahoma.
Yeah, that was a picture. Yeah. And I got to see him do that. I got, they always talked about that. I don't know if there is a such thing as double tendon strength, but I just know he had incredibly strong hands. And I saw firsthand him squeeze an apple. And at first glance, you may think that sounds like something that's not that impressive. I invite you to just pick up any apple, and try to squeeze an apple and see how hard that is. And he can take it and turn it into applesauce. But just one of the classiest men and just such a great ambassador for our business. He was in his career at Oklahoma. He was never taken off his feet ever in his career. Was a silver medalist in the Olympics.
Also a boxer, a very well-renowned boxer.
One of only two men to ever win a world title in boxing and wrestling. Think about that for a second.
Incredible.
Had these great trading cards. He actually gave me a copy and signed a copy of the Sports Illustrated cover. I still have that, and maybe next week I can break that out with the the replica of the belt. But one of the true joys of my entire career was getting to know him, just because he was such a class act. Just his persona aside and what he did, those comments, but it was just you can see in this picture. I had a shiner from the match the night before. You can see if you look close there. But he was just, he was everything that epitomized a professional, and I so admired him. And had not seen him in a long time, but man, my heart really goes out to his family and just to the wrestling community as a whole. If you have seen social media, all the legendary wrestlers that knew him and spoke about him said the same.
Ray, I got to tell you something. The outpouring was immense.
Yes, yeah, and just he gave me a signed copy. There's a signed copy of a book. Everyone, if you follow amateur wrestling, knows of Dan Gable. There was a biography written called Two Guys Named Dan about the similarities between Dan Gable and Dan Hodge. And it's an older book, but I have a signed copy that Danny gave me. Just things like that. And this is after, meeting for a short time. He just did all these, he gave me all these gifts. And it was just such a huge honor and such a huge thrill that someone of that stature would think enough of me, who was just up and coming at the time. I had not made a name in the business. I just was trying to learn, and he was such a great, so giving of his time and his knowledge. It was just such a cool thing to get to know him.
I got a great comment from Gus, and Gus, we appreciate you. Ray, and this is going to for all the ladies out there, I'm sorry, this post is going to cover my face momentarily because it's a long post, but it's worth it over here. Your wisdom now these days makes me more of a fan today than I was back then, Ray. It's refreshing to see you share so much youth and wisdom in your mindset, which I can relate to. In my early 30s, people think in my 20s because of my youthful mindset. And on the talking of Dusty, I bleached my hair one year in middle school, and kids called me Dusty Rhodes as a pun or insult, but they changed their stance immediately when they saw how much of a compliment I took it. That is from Gus Anselmo. Really, really awesome. Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to write all that. We appreciate that wholeheartedly.
Absolutely, Gus. And I hear you, man. I hear you. Listen, when we were in college, we did the same thing. We went as the Four Horsemen.
The Briscoes.
The Briscoes. Horsemen, okay. And my buddy, and I say me, my brother and my three of my friends, they went as the Horsemen. They didn't bleach their hair like Flair, but the guy who went, my buddy Kip, sprayed his hair white, and stuff.
Yeah.
But you know what? That goes back
when I was a kid, I actually dressed up as Mickey Doyle, believe it or not. Well, and my dad did too, and so did my granddad.
Mickey appreciates that. But the thing too that I would always say, what I explain to when I do seminars and our trainees is when people, there's a term in wrestling of being over or getting over in the wrestling business, being what they say, well, that person's really over with the crowd. And I always ask people, what that really means, and a lot of people don't know what it means. But in my definition of being over in the wrestling business, not just mine, but a lot of people who is the fact that fans, they want to live vicariously through that person. They want to be you. And like you guys were saying, to the point where you want to be someone to the point where you're willing to bleach your hair and go, to school like that. I mean, but like I said, my brother and I, we wanted to be Jack and Jerry Briscoe. We don't want to be like them. We want to be them. Yeah. And that's what's so great about wrestling is we're not characters that just hang up this costume when we go off TV or go home. We're that person through and through 24 hours a day, maybe just with the volume turned up and down, depending on if we're in front of a crowd or not. But if I, meet wrestling fans, they